All right, welcome back to Coaches Exploring Clarity. So we'll move on to Chapter 12.
Okay.
Intuition, Navigating by Wisdom. And there's a quote from Steve Jobs, entrepreneur, co-founder of Apple. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. And I think
That's
this is...
kind of one. Oh,
You go ahead,
so,
Lynn.
go ahead, Lynn.
one thought I had about that, and it came up from actually a conversation I had with two clients this week. Funnily enough, the conversation seemed to be quite similar. And it's not necessarily about the noise of others' opinions, but in their case, I can see it in myself. What they specifically this week were thinking others' opinions are or might be. So it wasn't necessarily that others had given an opinion, it's that they had thinking about what other people were thinking of them or might think of them. And I don't know if that says the same, I'm not sure it says the same thing, but certainly being able to draw them to this, to their intuition and what their wisdom tells them they should do, they could do, they might do, versus getting caught up in what they think other people are thinking about them. That conversation I hadn't read this at the time, but that conversation took on a different energy for them to see that actually they were making it up. They were making it, both situations were future situations. So I have to go into this and I'm nervous about it because, so and so might think. And yeah, so it was like they could see that it was made up. And once they went to their own, they settled themselves and saw that and went to their intuition of what they thought the next piece should be or what step they should take. It just the energy changed immensely. So that little quote just made me think of those two examples from this week.
I think it's the first time I've thought of it this way, but from what you just said is that, like, if we can recognize that whatever we're thinking, we're making up, and we're thinking about what other people might be thinking, but regardless of what they're thinking, they're also just going to be making up too. Like it's just, I don't know, to me, it's just another reminder of how, we just put so much significance on things that are so insignificant in reality.
Actually, Elaine and I had a conversation yesterday. I don't know if this resonates with you from that, Elaine. This just popped up. We were in a conversation yesterday, and I can't remember what you asked me, but it was something like I was getting caught up in my thinking about what other people might be thinking. That's exactly what was going on. And I think you asked me, do you think right now, or any time in the past, it was about the past few days, those people, I think you asked me, do you think right now those people are thinking Lynne is something? And that just brought me to no, they're at work, they're probably drinking tea, they could be cleaning the house, they could be driving the kids around, they could be doing a gazillion other things. Do I really think I first of all have no idea, but that question just stopped me. I was like, whether they are or they aren't, I don't actually know, and I'm putting so much thought into it myself. So it brings us back together. Everybody's just making it up.
It reminds me of a kind of a joke here in Canada, which is, so Canada is bolted onto the US, like culturally, and Canada has like this little brother syndrome of the US. Like we want to be accepted or whatever. And there's a joke that says, like, what do most Americans think of Canadians? And the answer is they don't. Like they don't, like, for as much as in Canada we care so much about what's going on in the US because it influences our culture, our economy, there's so many things. The reverse is not true. Like for the most part, Canadian, although we have lots of famous Canadian singers, comedians, actors, and so on that I guess do influence culture in the US and worldwide, but most Americans don't know anything about Canada, nor do they want to know anything about Canada, nor do they need to know anything about Canada. We're just not significant to them, whereas the opposite is true. Anyway, so often,
apparently, yes.
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I have nothing more to add about, the Steve Jobs quote, except that, apart from, once again, I just love the way that Jamie, I don't know how, where, when, or whatever, how he's prepared. I have no idea how to write a book, so I wouldn't know. But like how just beautifully the quotes, follow into the chapter, if you like, and how pertinent they really are. And I just, as I read though this quote again, I'm thinking my problem, I think people have said to me at various stages of my life, oh, you just got to follow your heart, and intuition, and it'll be all right. But I guess the noise in my head, so like, don't let the noise of others' opinions draw out your own, was so huge that I didn't even know I had a heart and an intuition.
Mm.
And I'm sort of thinking, well, if that could be so, and that now today I'm far more aware that I do have a heart and I do have intuition, and sometimes I even have some wisdom to to share, sort of thing, that, or something that will guide me, kind of thing. Maybe it's for us as coaches, it could be an interesting thing to take on board, that some people just have never had the chance to be able to listen to their heart. They have no concept of it in any way at all. Yeah, that's just what sort of a little add-on, as you two were talking. Because then, to me, once that is seen, then the rest is actually quite easy.
Mm.
Yeah.
What's occurring to me from what you've said is that kind of in hindsight, we can spot places in our lives where wisdom is Jamie uses the phrase wisdom in action. So even though our awareness of our heart or our intuition may not be at a conscious level, but I can think of many times in my life where things have happened that has been kind of a wake-up call or a fork in the road, and deciding which path to take, that has been, in hindsight, I look back and go, oh yeah, that was wisdom in action for me. So it's and I see a lot in a lot of the coaching sessions that I get to watch with Jamie, where he uncovers these kind of moments of wisdom in action. And when you realize oh yeah, that's what that moment was, it's kind of like a new paradigm of a moment that we thought we understood, and now it's when you realize that that's what actually was happening, it changes like your whole understanding of it completely changes.
Yeah. Indeed, in the sense, which sort of goes to almost contradict what I just said, but it makes sense what you say, Greg, in the sense that we actually don't, I sort of, in my previous sentences, professed to to the fact that I didn't even know I had a heart. But indeed, there'll be something in that, in my thinking that I don't know, or not just being oblivious to it. There will be something behind that for sure is keeping me safe, keeping me, or what is again wisdom in action. Because indeed it's there all the time, and it always has been, and it always will guide you. So yeah.
It reminds me, I don't know if you guys know the poem. I think it's called Footprints. It's like a Christian poem, and it's like footprints in the sand on a beach. And I don't really, I'll just paraphrase kind of my understanding of it because I don't know it off by heart, but it's like, there's two sets of footprints in the sand, which and it's a metaphor for this person's life. And it's Jesus walking with the person side by side. And then the person says, but in my times of most peril and trouble, there's only one set of footprints. Why did you abandon me in my time of need? And Jesus says, I didn't abandon you. Those were the times when I carried you. So it's just a very powerful kind of, again, like, oh, I thought I was alone, but no, I was being carried.
Yeah, beautiful.
My mom would be very proud of me that I just mentioned that.
Well done.
Yeah. Send her the recording.
Yeah.
I think, funnily enough, what's coming up for me out of all of that, from I don't know where, is the wisdom in action part. I think so often we don't even, well, obviously we don't even notice. I'm going to say obviously, because there are so many things that we do intuitively that have to be that without thinking, or so, like reaching the fork in the road, even at times when, and you just know that there's no other way. This is the way, this is the right thing to do. But somehow that seems big, but I think a lot of times they're really small things. It could be, I don't even know, I kind of have to get off and think about today, but I wonder how many things today where, just as we've gotten to this time of the day already, there's been wisdom in action, whether it's been reaching out with a communication or responding to something or not, or noticing a thought and acting on it or not, or so I think it's so intrinsic that again it comes back to, well, we can rely on that, and knowing that we can rely on that is again freeing. And
yeah,
I can't, and I'm still coming back to thinking about pets. I'm just I've got this picture of
Lynne, it sounds to me like you just wrote a part of the book. It sounds to me like on page 134 that kind of it's like you're saying the bit where Jamie says, remember, people tend to think, speak, and act as though their thought forms have the same qualities as the material world. We use material world metaphors for our work, for our lives, for our problems, and we create those metaphors and bring them to life using the principles of thought, consciousness, and mind. Then we respond to them as though they're material reality. We conceptualize life as a journey, a struggle, or an adventure. Then we start behaving as though that is actually the case. That sounds to me like what you just said. Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Or maybe not.
I don't know.
No, it was just
It's all gone out of my head now, so I can't even
yeah,
respond.
no, just because you were talking, I just thought, hang on, Jamie's just written something about that, and I just found it, so I just kind of popped it in there. Weird, I don't know. Yeah, there may be nothing to add. That's all. Just as you were talking.
Well, what I was thinking about was the innate nature of wisdom, that we all have it. It's reliable. It's there, and it was reminding me of when he's talking about our senses are innate, and we don't have to go to classes to learn to see and hear and feel and taste and smell. And when I was reading that, I had a picture of like a whole bunch of babies in a classroom, and like the teacher at the front going, "Okay, now we're going to learn how to smell," and like, you know how babies are, they'd be all over the place, and the teacher at the front getting frustrated. And I don't know, it was just a funny picture that came to me. But the just the innate nature of it, and kind of getting back to what I said before, like if I think if we each reflected on our own lives, we'd find so many moments that prior to understanding the innate nature of wisdom, that we thought that something else was going on entirely. And now we could go back and look at all those moments and go, oh, yeah, that was wisdom in action. And like, to your point, Lynn, it's not just big moves like, should I buy this house or not? Or should I marry this person or not? Or should I have kids or not? It's, what shirt am I going to put on today? Or the phone's ringing. Should I answer it or should I not answer it? There's so many little, I think it reminds me a little bit of is it William Whitecloud, The Magician's Way? It's like, navigating myself through traffic. There's so many times when I take a different route than I normally take somewhere. I can't really explain why. And it was not like I have the GPS on or something, but I just decided to go left here and take this route. And I ended up getting there faster. And then you listen to the radio and it's like, oh yeah, there was a big traffic jam over there. I don't know how I knew to avoid that, but I just did. The inexplainable kind of everyday things that happen.
Yeah.
And you hear things like, when the World Trade Center was bombed, there's stories of people who woke up that morning just thought like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go to work today.
Stay home today. Yeah.
And they can't really explain it, but it saved their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a gentleman that used to call on me. He was in China on a family vacation on the coast, and they were supposed to spend their entire vacation at this resort, and they decided to go inland and on some excursions and stuff, kind of on a whim. And while they were inland, the tsunami hit, and if they'd been where they were supposed to be, they probably wouldn't have survived.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds, again, back at the beginning of the book, when Jamie mentions Harold Gatty's book, Nature is Your Guide. That Greg, you were saying, the kids were learning how to smell, but they already know how to smell. So basically the teacher was telling them what they should be smelling. Like, what does a rose smell like? Well, it smells like a rose, if you know what I mean. It doesn't smell like anything else.
Yeah.
Unless, it's let's say a rotten rose, in which case it's going to send your senses into confusion. But if you just look at the sense itself and what the sense is telling you, rather than something that is conditioned into you, because the teacher said this is a rose, so it's going to smell like that. And let's say you can pick up the smell of, let's say, rotten or burning rose and understand the feeling like, oh my God, my house is on fire. So you're going to act in a sensible sort of way. But because you rely on your true sense of intuition and guidance, informed by the physical senses, of course. But to date, like, our physical senses are actually informed by what the teacher tells you what to sense or feel or be.
You both know that I have this food problem. I'm not trying foods and stuff, but and my daughter's been home. She kind of has inherited this, and I say that jokingly, knowing that that's not actually true, but that's the story we tell ourselves. And what you just said, and just the whole idea of senses is like her and I were talking yesterday in the car about our shared common experience about being around food we don't want to try or are unfamiliar with or whatever, and how it wreaks havoc in our lives socially and stuff because of everything revolving around food and stuff in social settings. But the idea that, like, we have layers and layers of thinking. Like, we think that our senses are telling us something about the smell of the food or the look of the food or the texture of the food. But that's all, we've just made that all up somehow. And for a good reason, like presumably to keep ourselves safe, or I don't know, like there's a positive intention behind it. But when you were just talking there, it was like, how amazing would it be if we could just like erase that program and start fresh and be like, okay, let's just put stuff in our mouth and see what it tastes like, or see what it feels like, and rewrite a new program. I don't know. Anyway, that's just, you may have just unlocked my lifelong
or even
trauma,
not even not even go as far as, well, what does it taste like, but like, is this food that happens to smell like this?
Yeah.
Is this going to be good for me? Full stop. Is this going to be nourishing for me? Is it going to feed me and help me thrive?
Yeah.
Because I guess that's really all we really need to know. And all the rest is just sort of built up in an evolutionary sense upon that.
Yeah.
It's sort of moving away from a basic survival sense, if you're talking about food.
Yeah.
So erase it and just let it be, so that you will be drawn towards some foods and other foods which are going to be more, let's say, I mean, it may, I remember you saying, Greg, for example, that you like your steak and chips, and well, maybe that's good for you.
Yeah.
And yet all of a sudden you suddenly went off onto this, but I know I shouldn't be eating this much or this stuff. I just know, but like, you don't. Maybe you don't.
Yeah.
You're badly informed about what you know or what you think you know.
Yeah.
And sticking on to diets, I mean, I believe there are, they go and create diets. I'm not saying necessarily weight loss diets, but nourishing diets for people. There's some, I'm not very up on this, but according to their blood types, but not according to what's in the supermarket, if you know what I mean, or what's in the next shiny magazine. So that kind of sounds more hopeful to me, and it makes sense, because that's probably going to be the thing. Like, that's the kind of guidance you need. So you're informed by your own body about what it is, or what you should or shouldn't be eating. Kind of would make far more sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep you guys posted.
I was just looking at you when you were saying, imagine if I could set the reset button or rewrite the program.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden but normally when we've talk about the food thing, it's like one kind of expression. You kind of got a bit, I imagine, hey.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because like prior to 2 years ago, I couldn't imagine being, for lack of a better word, normal. And now I can imagine it. So I think that's progress.
Yeah.
Well, that whole normal thing's a whole other day.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, that's a whole nother program. We could do that if you want. What is normal?
That'll be the next podcast topic.
Yeah.
Shall we wrap up with the thought experiment for this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is on page 140. How good does it feel to realize that you have an incredibly reliable inner guidance system, a means of navigation that's always helping you out with clear, context-sensitive, up-to-the-minute information? Feels great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking, oh, that's a relief.
Yeah.
That's like, sounds like a whole new plan of life. You know, like, cool.
It kind of takes it takes away the pressure of feeling like we have to know, we have to have the answers to everything.
Yeah.
Like, Greg, you don't maybe have to have the answer to the food thing, or imagine realizing that you have that inner guidance system for that even. But it just takes away it seems to me it takes away the pressure of the feeling of we have to have all the answers.
Well, I think over my time of coaching people in the last year in particular, this is what I rely on, and this is where I point people, because this is essentially pointing to the power of insight. So, recognizing when and where you get your insights and how that can help you, how you can rely on that wisdom so you don't have to figure things out. Let wisdom and insight figure it out for you.
Yeah, it's takes a whole lot of weight off your shoulders anyway.
Oh, there's so much coming up there, because what's popping up there is this whole feeling of the whole question of normal. We won't spend much time on that, but the whole question of normal, and what you said earlier, Elaine, about comparing. And when people come along with the notion that, I can't remember in which chapter, this one or the last one, where it says, there's stuff to fix and there are problems and we're not complete and whatever. So when they come along with that notion, and then they have somehow that I have to get into this normal bucket, and because I'm comparing myself with other people, if we can only point them to that they can follow their own wisdom, their own inner guidance system, as it says, then how freeing is that? Because then the whole notion of normal and comparing, just there's absolutely no need for either. It just doesn't seem to be any need.
Yeah, and
that feels freeing.
Very much. And it also seems to put, what I was saying before, again, it's about just taking on board, the page 135, sort of final thought. Life just is.
It just is. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah, just is.
Yeah.
Seems like an appropriate place to wrap it up.
It does.
Life just is.
Life just is.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you both.